else who's not on the West Coast, but good morning to the West Coast. Going to talk about the production of China that kills the domestic manufacturing here in the United States. And this is something that no matter what we do here in the United States, we're just never going to be able to repair the damage that is done to the manufacturing. It's just something that is going to be inevitable, that it's going to continue to be more productive to produce in foreign lands and ship those products to the United States than it would ever be for the United States to manufacture it itself. Now, I'm not trying to deny the idea that there is manufacturing that takes place here in the United States. And in fact, there's quite an extensive manufacturing base here in the United States. What I'm arguing is that there is not enough to maintain our standard of living. If we do not import the products from these foreign competitors who make it cheaper, our standard of living would not be nearly as high as it is today. Now, when it comes to the production of China in competition to the United States has to subsidize, has to try and give tax exemptions, try to tariff like foreign production in order to keep its manufacturing base here and to remain somewhat competitive. Now, you can tell by the article down in the description that this is a major concern coming out of the United States and the Treasury Department on what it is that they need to do in order to keep the manufacturing here in the United States, which is going to be very difficult to do. And you can see by that article that that is one of the things that they are going to be addressing here going into the future, is how to deal with the manufacturing here in the United States and the competition that is coming out of China. Now, China is sitting in a very difficult position in which that the slowdown that has taken place around the world is now making their manufacturing less profitable to them. I don't know how else to quite say it, other than the amount that they are trying to produce and get out there to the world and has a very low demand to it. So now they are just absolutely subsidizing all their manufacturing and trying to dump it out there onto the rest of the world. And the United States is feeling the impact from it. Now, this is something that I had actually predicted quite a while ago, when the idea that the Federal Reserve, or not the Federal Reserve, but the Treasury and the government were going to step up efforts to try and bring some sort of investment back to the United States, in the idea that we were going to ramp up manufacturing. I knew it wasn't going to work. Like, it's never going to work. And it's not like me thinking the political atmosphere or even the banking issues that are taking place was the reasoning behind it. The reasoning behind it is because the economic forces that were dictated back in the Cantillon essay from hundreds of years ago describe this exact scenario. Right? I mean, like, almost perfectly. There's a link down in the description to the Amazon affiliate to the Cantillon essay. You can go and purchase that essay and read it for yourself, which I encourage everybody to do. You don't have to purchase the essay. It is available at the Mises Institute. So if you just Google Cantillon essay on economic theory, you can find it for yourself. The chapters on the increase and decrease of money to a state, those 3 chapters are so telling, and they are so predictive of what is going to be taking place going into the future. Now, this is the case that we're in. Like, I don't care what it is that the government tries to do, what companies try to do, what anybody is trying to do to bring manufacturing back to the United States. Unless we lower our standard of living and start producing things at a competitive price to the rest of the world, we are never going to be able to sell those products to the rest of the world. And now the United States does produce something major, a consumer. That's our major product, is that we are a consumer for the rest of the world, and we're the world's biggest debtor. So we borrow money from the rest of the world and then buy their stuff, and that's the cycle that we are really in. Any kind of reversal to it is not going to work. It's just like going to be painful experiences that are going to be very frustrating, that are going to require like major efforts coming from the government itself to try and maintain the manufacturing here in the United States. And you can already see from the article down in the description that it is a major problem that the United States is facing today. All right, I'm a little late getting started here today, so we're probably only going to be out here for maybe 20 minutes or so. Let's go and read some of these comments and see what you guys have to think about the manufacturing here in the United States. I was already waiting for the stream. Right on, Isaac. All right. Nider says, hey, salutes and respect to the uneducated in the chat. Hey, right on. Thank you so much for being here. All right, hit the like button. Yes, please do. You sound like Obama. I sound like Obama. Okay, I don't know how that is, right? I never really listened to Obama or much of what he had to say. So, I mean, if you think that I sound like Obama, I don't know in what sense, right? I don't follow any kind of political arena. I don't follow any kind of political atmosphere. And so what I see happening right now is the economic forces that I have learned about over the past 20 years of studying economics, you know. So Obama was going to try and bring manufacturing back to the United States. Remember all the green energy movements and investments that he did? How well did that work out? Obama sucked at it. All right, got to get the punctuation right. The U.S. primarily excels in high-tech manufacturing. Switch to Mexico. There's a ton of manufacturing in Mexico. It doesn't really matter if it's Mexico or China or Vietnam or anywhere else. It's not the United States. And that's the important part to understand. Yes, I mean, actually bringing manufacturing to Mexico, if Mexico is going to be the next major manufacturer for the United States, is actually probably going to end up being a pretty good deal for those people who are really worried about the immigration thing happening here. Because why do people really want to immigrate to the United States, right? It's for that better standard of living. If you become the manufacturing for the United States, the manufacturer, your standard of living will increase. This is the problem that China is actually facing right now. It's one of the reasons why they're trying to subsidize everything that they got for manufacturing going on there, is because their manufacturing is leaving that country to find cheaper production areas, right? I mean, once you have increased your production, your manufacturing, you're selling that stuff to the rest of the world, they're sending you money. Once that money comes in, the standard of living starts to increase, which means that your production now has a higher cost to it. And that's when the manufacturing begins to leave. That's the reason why it left the United States and moved to China. It's going to leave China and go to Mexico, Vietnam, India, wherever. You know, the manufacturing seeks out the cheapest place to produce. And it's not a political choice in this matter. I mean, you know, there's a lot of things that are in it that are involved with politics, but ultimately, if you can describe these things from an essay that was written hundreds of years ago, then you can really remove politics out of it and just look at the economic forces that are really at play. And then you can throw plenty of blame around for the political atmosphere. I mean, there's lots of it. But really, you have to understand like the economic force that is forcing that to happen. Production is just getting cheaper in places that have lower standard of living. If they have somewhat of an education that's taken place there, the people are smart enough to start producing at a cheaper cost, then that's it, man. Your manufacturing base is going to leave. And that's all there is to it. You know, and just the idea that your standard of living has increased means that most people are moving into luxurious items, right? Now, granted, having a simple car, having a simple house, having a simple life, you know, just these not like extravagant or anything else like that doesn't seem luxurious to a lot of people. It is. Think about the rest of the world and how like impoverished a lot of people truly are. If you have a car, you have a luxurious item. If you have a place to live, you have a very luxurious item, right? And those are the luxuries that a higher standard of living will bring to people. But the only way to get that higher standard of living is to ramp up production, sell that stuff off to the world, which is the exact reason why most people end up failing, is because once they have achieved that higher level of success, they want to enjoy the higher standard of living. And literally the move into luxuries is the thing that starts to deteriorate the whole system again and moves the manufacturing to another place. All right, hope all is well. The U.S. does manufacture quite a bit, actually. We just don't competitive advantage in high labor, low skill manufacturing. That's where I'm kind of getting at. Like, I don't care how much, like we could produce a ton of stuff. We could produce so much stuff and people are like, no, look at all these exports that we do. Yes, look at the fact that we import a hell of a lot more than we export, right? I mean, just look at the trade imbalance that is happening out there. That's the key to it all, right? Is that if you are importing a lot more than you're exporting, right, then your manufacturing base is going to be leaving. And that's all. I mean, you can still produce a lot of stuff, right? And we do. I mean, we produce a lot of things, but it's not enough. Like if they cut off all the imports coming into this nation, our standard of living would deplete. Like all items that are produced here in the United States would absolutely jump to the highest possible price that they could ever possibly be. And the foreign production that would come in would then make our standard of, or the lack of foreign production coming in would then deteriorate the standard of living for everybody. It's sad to think, right? But it's just the way it is. And it's better to understand it for this, for this reason than it is to understand it from a political reason, because really, if you blame it on politics, the idea that is a political issue that is happening here means that you would be able to actually vote for somebody who could fix it. And that is very dangerous to think. Oh, let me get the dice up there. Sorry, there we go. And that's a very dangerous position to be in, is because there is no magical person out there. There is nobody who is intelligent enough. There is no system that they can put into place that will actually reverse the course. The only way that we could actually reverse course on this and bring manufacturing back to the United States in a meaningful way is for us to lower our standard of living, to live off of the absolute bare minimum necessities that you could get away with, to take all the money that you are making beyond that that sustains your life, and you reinvest that. You buy no luxuries, or you reuse, reduce, recycle, you make do without, all that stuff, and you do that for generations, literally not just a few years, but generations of people, right? Doing this for an extensive period of time will eventually probably make the manufacturing be available to come back to the United States. Here's the problem with it. I cannot find a single example of that ever occurring throughout history. Not once. None. The only way that happens is if you have a complete collapse of the entire system of the economy and being able to start over where everybody is starting from poverty and misery. It's sad to say, but that's the only example I ever find happening, is that it grows and breaks, right? But it doesn't get repaired, not in a meaningful way. All right, Simon, what's your thoughts of the major AI factory being built in America? I don't think it's going to work. I mean, you can go ahead and produce it and do all the other stuff, but if you have foreign competition that is doing it as well, right? And even if they don't do it as good, right, they will still be the competitor to the United States, and people will always buy their cheaper products, right? Even if it's a higher quality. There's people out there who will choose to buy high quality items. But if you take a room of 100 people and you offer up 2 deals, they're most likely, most of them are going to end up choosing the cheaper deal. So even if you bring it to the United States with this grand idea and all this, and government investments and tax subsidies and trade tariffs and all that other stuff, you are constantly in an economic force that is competing against you, right? All the other people out there who are producing the same thing are going to be producing it cheaper. And eventually that you're going to, either you have to keep fighting it with government interventions, or eventually you just have to give into it and just allow that foreign production to come in. Yeah. But again, like it's, I don't see where it is. The only thing that I could see that would actually bring the manufacturing back to the United States and maintain it doesn't work like that, because ultimately once you have put all the tariffs and everything on it, they will find ways to circumvent those actions. Like, for example, let's say you put a tariff on China for a particular product that they are producing or overproducing, right? Well, what ends up happening is like you say, okay, everything that's coming out of China gets hit with a certain percentage of trade tariffs. China then moves it to another country that doesn't have it, and then they start shipping it in from that other nation so that they can avoid the tariff, right? Sometimes this actually works. Like the idea that you put this tariff on a particular product, like let's use Canada, for example, right? The United States is constantly accusing Canada of dumping cheap lumber into the United States because of how subsidized their mills are up there. This is kind of like a huge argument, and so they hit Canada with these huge trade tariffs on lumber to hopefully prevent the cheap lumber from being dumped into the United States. Now, once this starts to take place and the production of lumber in Canada becomes so expensive that dumping it into the United States is no longer this effective way of like producing lumber, those mills set up shop inside of the United States and avoid all those tariffs. There's like, this is crazy to think about, but like, if I remember right, I believe Ineffective, which is one of the major Canadian mills, if I remember right, they have more mills operating in the United States than they have operating in Canada. That's crazy to think, right? A Canadian company has more production taking place within the United States than they have coming out of Canada. And now this is like, people would say like, oh man, see, you bring in manufacturing back to the United States, these Canadian mills operating here, where does the profit go? Right? Yeah, sure, you got some people working, but the profit is leaving. Right? It's not like that's a production for the United States. That's a production for Canada, for the Canadian mills. We sold ourselves out a long time ago. We didn't really sell ourselves out. We moved into luxuries. That's it. Like, that's the problem. We enjoyed our standard of living. We enjoyed the new money coming in. Like, who wouldn't do that? Like, I mean, anybody who gets a raise, a significant raise, or just earns a significant amount of money, very rarely do they stay in that single room apartment, driving the crappy car, wearing the same old clothes. Very rarely does that happen. People once they start increasing the amount of income that they are earning, they increase the standard of living that they have. They start enjoying the money, the new money. And there's like, that's human nature. It's very difficult for people to be that disciplined to say, I'm not going to enjoy the new money. Like, it's like, it doesn't happen that way. I mean, for some people it does. And those people who are very disciplined actually do quite well with their lives. You look back at them and they're like, oh man, that guy is such a miser or whatever. He didn't spend any money on anything out there. Yeah, it's because he was disciplined and understood that if he works hard now and holds on to it, invests, then maybe he can have an easier life going into the future. But it's certainly not going to be from the dive into luxuries, right? Or the pursuit of them. It's the pursuit of that stable life, that, reinvestment, that, All right. Hey, Simon, what do you think about the use of automation in manufacturing? Well, I mean, to me, I look at automation as a great thing, as a wonderful thing that doesn't necessarily take away from the employment aspect of stuff. Yes, it does take away those particular jobs, but it frees those people up to go and pursue the things that they really should have been doing with their life to begin with. Right? That's really the way that we should look at this. Like, take for example, and I've used this one before, right? Telephone operators. Back in the day, there was warehouses full of people, full of women doing switchboard operation, right? And these phone operators literally pulling plugs and switching wires around. And this was the way that a lot of these women were finding employment. Well, once they got rid of the switchboards and went to digital, they didn't need all these warehouses full of people, switching these wires around. And there was like this huge thought that there was going to be all these unemployed women out there who weren't going to have anything to do with their day, right? And like, I mean, this was like one of the arguments that was put out there. And so what you really think happened after that is that really a lot of these women started going off and pursuing the things that they really should have been doing with their life to begin with, getting educated, becoming the doctors and lawyers and, working government and doing all the other stuff. It freed them up to actually pursue a life of potential, right? Instead of sitting there just switching the wires around, which doesn't do anything for, achieving a potential, right? It frees them up to go and pursue that. And so I look at this as like a wonderful thing. The more that AI and automation and everything can then relieve us from doing the mundane things that we do with our days every day. Like, yes, a lot of people look at it as like, well, that's how I get employed. True, right? I mean, but there's other things that you can do out there with your life that can find gainful employment from, and you're actually pursuing the things, the talents, the passions that you have within you. Like, to me, automation is a wonderful thing, right? It frees people up to go and pursue what it is that they should have been doing with their life. Moving down here to the bottom. Wow, look at all these comments. Okay, hey, Lumberjack Landlord up in here. They already have been Benny. Okay, Benny. It's unbelievable. People think there is going to be a massive wave of people being replaced by AI and automation. Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, it's happening. Like it's gonna happen. But again, like to me, that frees you up to do the things that you really should have been doing with your life. There is so much more that people have to offer this world than doing something that a machine can do for you. Right? There's like you have so much better, more things to offer. Uh, no one drives junker vehicles than me. No one drives a junkier vehicle than me. I have you seen my 99 Corolla? Have you seen my S10? I mean, I drive come those two vehicles are probably the worst vehicles in Astoria, or at least two of them, right? I mean, as far as their looks and condition of them and stuff, they run great, right? But they don't look like much. All right, 300 people up in here. Go hit that like button. All right. What's a kiosk in McDonald's? Yeah, that's right. Or the apps on your phone. Like, I mean, ordering like a lot of stuff from, places now, you have to go through an app to get it and stuff. It's really like, okay. AI revolution hasn't even gotten started. All right. No one holding on to money doesn't work. No, holding on to money doesn't work unless you are saving for retirement. Saving is a waste of time. You have to spend on the basics: rents, mortgage, food, bills. All right. Okay. Well, that's the necessities. All right. All right. People who fix robots will eventually lead people to forget how to change their oil and spark plugs. That's already starting to happen. All right. 105 matrix of 209,000 miles, busted windshield, broken door handles, laugh out loud, right? Yeah. Have you seen my 1990 F-250? I haven't, but that's right, man. 1990, I love it. Have you seen my 1977 Dodge Aspen? I love this, man. Seems like a lot of production has moved out of China, Simon. Yes, it has. And it's going to be moving and that's one of the problems that China is facing. In fact, this is one of the reasons why I feel that there is going to be some major conflict taking place coming out of China. I mean, China itself, because they are sitting in a position which they know, like, this can't, China understands economics. Like they have been playing this game for a long time and they know fiat currencies and they understand gold standards. They understand all that stuff, right? So they, like, in my opinion, they are not surprised by the situation that is now presenting itself with the manufacturing, right? And if you think about it, really, what did China do over the last decade, right, with the Belt and Road Initiative? This is something that we had covered just recently in a members only live stream. We were talking about China dollar funding stresses. Right here. This whatever coming out of the Boston Federal Reserve, dollar funding stresses in China. And if you read this document here, you would find that they talked about how it is that China is going to be able to acquire dollars in order to continue operating. They have a lot. China, not only their government, but their corporations, the people there have a lot of dollar denominated debt. And now I know a lot of people say, well, they just default on it. No, it doesn't work like that, right? They can't just default on it. Just defaulting on this means that it ruins their entire credit rating and they're going to have a very difficult time borrowing money from anybody else if they default on their dollar denominated debt. And even if they have a small portion of their debt that is denominated in dollars, it is by far the most important part, right? So China is very much in demand for dollars, United States dollars. As much as you hear all the BRICS nations and getting out of the dollar and abandoning the dollar, it's complete bull, right? That is not existing. It's going to increase. The demand for dollars is going to go up, not down, right? And so when you think about like how it is that China is planning on getting dollars, well, typically they would sell their stuff to the world. That would get dollars in, right? But now they're going to have a hard time competing with the rest of the world in order to get those dollars back into China through the issue or through the distribution of manufactured products, right? So now they got to figure out another way to get dollars in. They realize this probably years ago that this was going to be the case coming, because it's just, if you read this is the natural course and order of things. So understanding that you are going to end up failing to bring dollars in through the manufacturing, what they have done is they instead have taken dollars and lent them to all these foreign sovereign nations out there for them to build up their infrastructure, building ports, mines, highways. All the Belt and Road Initiative stuff was 80% funded with US dollars coming from China. China lent these people US dollars. Those people, all those foreign entities from the Belt and Road Initiative, then have to pay back that debt in dollars. This is a way that China has established a way of having a flow of dollars coming back to their nation. And it's how prevalent or how extensive or how bad this gets for China, it's only time is really going to tell. However, if they come into a situation in which that is not enough dollar funding, which I can't imagine it being, that the manufacturing of the selling of stuff doesn't bring enough dollars in, then they're going to have to figure out a way to start selling something that is going to bring dollars in. And generally, that's probably going to be debt, right? Like Chinese debt denominated in dollars. And now this debt issuance has to have some sort of trust behind it. Like you actually have to believe China is going to pay that back. And now this is the way that China is probably going to end up having the course that they would have to go down in order to bring the dollar funding into their nation. That is going to be a direct competition with the United States, who wants to be the debt issuer. We issue out U.S. treasuries. So if you can imagine that China says, well, hey, we're having problems here getting the dollar funding that we need. So and we can't do it through manufacturing, and the Belt and Road Initiative isn't enough, but we need to figure out a way to get some dollars in here. And if people aren't going to trust us, we're going to have to start blowing some people up and just take their stuff, right? Because otherwise we're going to suffer and die. That's literally the Chinese position, right? And if they don't are they just going to sit around going, oh man, it's going to be some hard times for a while. I guess we can't really do anything about this, even though we can have this huge army and we can go and just start taking over nations and just take their stuff from them if they don't buy our debt from us, all right? So that's where I feel that the world wars would really start to take place, in something of that sort of scenario. Now, I'm not trying to be predictive of the future, but what are they going to do? What are they going to do? Are they just going to suffer with the fact that it isn't happening, or are they going to go and take it? Because that's, when you're desperate, you're going to do some pretty desperate things. All right. What time is it? Okay, guys, I got 5 more minutes here, and then I got to go. All right. Up here, Wayne, I retired my 81 Volkswagen pickup about 5 years ago. Commuted at 100 miles a day for years with that little caddy. I still got it in the shed. Good for you, man. Yeah, I laugh when I hear coworkers talk about BRICS. Yeah, the problem is that most people who are listening to the BRICS narrative kind of thing, they don't take into consideration a lot of stuff. One of them being Gresham's Law, a few of them, Triffin's Dilemma, right? Those two right there are very key economic conditions or theories. And they're not even really theories, they're more forces that are happening. To me, a theory is just it could be one way or the other. When you think about how Triffin's Dilemma really has a situation in which that the United States trying to be the provider of the world reserve currency makes it very difficult to try and get the dollars out there to the rest of the world if you're manufacturing and trying to distribute products to the rest of the world, because you're not going to get your money out there. What you're going to get is other people's money. So what ends up happening is that the United States then has to be the buyer of the world's stuff, right? So the trade imbalance then provides more stuff as we push the currency out there to the rest of the world. This is Triffin's dilemma, and very few nations out there want to be the one who is importing the stuff. Most nations want to be the one who is exporting stuff, and that's including all those BRICS nations out there. So not a single BRICS nation wants to be the importer. They all want to be the exporter. And if you are the exporter of stuff, what you are going to do is you are going to increase your consumption of money, right? You're exporting stuff, you're bringing in money. Now, if you have a high standard of living, then what's going to end up happening is that your manufacturing base is going to slow down and you're going to start bringing in foreign production. This is the Cantillon effect. There's no way of stopping it, right? So these BRICS nations, when they get together and say, hey, we're going to start doing manufacturing and distribution amongst ourselves, screw the United States. Well, one of those guys is going to be the biggest manufacturer of stuff, right? And they're going to start importing all the money. Now, on top of this, the BRICS nations say, hey, we are going to get out of the US dollar and we are going to use our own sovereign currency. But not a single one of those nations wants to accumulate an abundance of any one of those other nations' currency. Like Russia is having issues. I don't know if they still are. I haven't looked it up lately, but they were having issues collecting too many rupees. Now they had all these rupees. They don't know what to do with them because the rest of the world doesn't want rupees, right? Only India wants rupees. So now Russia has to either invest or buy from India, making it very limited to do any kind of world trade with if there's only one nation that you can actually work with. So having a sovereign currency accumulation from one particular nation is not going to end up working out too well. So they have to have a common currency amongst them. But none of these countries trust each other, especially considering that one of those nations would have to be the debt issuer, meaning like the United States, who is the debt issuer of U.S. treasuries. They provide the world with a safe and liquid asset, those U.S. treasuries themselves. No other nation out there even comes close to doing what it is that the United States is doing with those U.S. treasuries, providing the world with that safe and liquid asset. Here's the other thing. It's nobody trusts, right? I mean, they hardly even trust the United States. But now you're going to trust some other nation to go deeply into debt and then promise to pay those debts, right? No BRICS nation is sitting in that position. There's nothing that they can do. Even if they switched over to a gold, the most industrious one of those nations, of those BRICS nations, would accumulate all the gold. The rest of the people would suffer in poverty and misery. Right? There's nothing they can do. To me, like the whole BRICS idea is actually a benefit to the Federal Reserve and the United States, because finally they can say, dang, good. There is not so much demand for dollars, creating the liquidity issues that are stated inside of this book or inside of this paper right here. See, a lot of people look at it saying like, man, the dollar sucks. It's all this money printing. It's failing. It's on its way out. It's going to lose value and all this other stuff. They have no clue. They do not take into consideration how much demand for dollars exists outside of this country. It is absolutely immense. Right? And it's far more than what anybody ever anticipates it. And when you think about it, the quantitative easing that has happened over the recent years still was not enough to provide the world with enough dollars to pay off all the debt. That's scary to think about. There's no way that it can happen. Right? The only way that it will eventually lose its prestigious position is once people have lost complete confidence, not only in the treasuries, but the dollars in the United States in general, including our military. I don't see that. I don't see that confidence lost. I hear people trying to lose confidence in it, but the world is still very confident that the United States is going to pay its bills, right? Because we have the printing press to do it. There's zero doubt. Right? But I do doubt whether or not India or China or any of those other nations would pay. Like, I have no trust for Russia, So, to me, the BRICS nations is just really like a relief for the Federal Reserve itself to not have to provide as much liquidity to the world. Alrighty, guys. I's gots to go. Uneducated Economist. Thank you for being here. Thank you very much for hitting that like button. We have 423 people watching right now. I love these lunchtime live streams. They are so popular right now. So thank you very much for being here. Thank you for hitting that like button if you really enjoyed this video. The algorithm is going to pick it up and send it around for more people to join in and watch this video. I think it was a lot of good stuff that we had covered inside of this, and you know, this is how we do it. This is like how we figure out how it is that we are going to position ourselves to deal with the economic outcomes that are going to be coming, because not anybody, not a single person is going to be doing things the same as everybody else. Like, we all have to make a decision for ourselves on how it is that we are going to position ourselves, and it's important to understand it for ourselves. All right, uneducated economist, you guys let me know.